Thank you all for coming. We're excited to see everyone here. I'm Nicole Miller, the Forest Futures Program Director for the Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation. On behalf of all of our staff, our CEO, Stacy Caldwell, and our board, I want to thank you for joining us for tonight's Salon on Community Wildfire Protection Plans. We are recording this presentation, so I would like to remind everyone to please keep yourself muted, and you can type questions into the chat, and they will be recorded and monitored by our staff and answered at the end of the presentations. The Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation has been serving our community since 1998. We connect people and opportunities, generating resources to build a more caring, creative, and effective community. We pride ourselves in connecting donors to causes they love, supporting nonprofits through grants and training, and connecting community leaders to collaborate on strategy. We're supported by an amazing board of directors, passionate about this region, representing a range of industries, and all deeply embedded and engaged in the community. And I want to thank our staff who work tirelessly to support our efforts. We have a couple of staff members on today, Anne, our program coordinator, and Sashay, our Chief Operating Officer. And thank you to the rest of our staff and board that are on the call today. Community foundations are place-based philanthropic organizations dedicated to improving the lives and environment of a particular area, and they play a key role in identifying and addressing the needs of their region and responding with resources and solutions. Beyond grant making and scholarships, TTCF has identified 3 critical issues unique to our community: family strengthening, workforce housing, and forest health. The Forest Futures Initiative has grown from knowing that as a community, we must continue to do all we can to mitigate the risks from wildfire. Forest Futures is a strategic model for how community foundations across the country can take a lead role in confronting the local impacts of climate change. Forest Futures has 3 areas of impact that we focus on. The first is protecting communities, with projects supported including reducing fuels, establishing fire breaks, protecting evacuation routes, and supporting the development and use of technology to keep us informed about wildfire risk and current events. The second impact area is building a forest economy through supporting infrastructure, funding for workforce development, infrastructure projects, and industry to utilize woody biomass while strengthening the economy in our rural region. And the third impact area is accelerating market solutions, which includes scaling and speeding forest management through private businesses while creating a model that can be replicated in other global mountain communities. We're deploying flexible and nimble capital to fill needs and gaps, accelerating projects, permits, and progress. To date, Forest Futures has raised $5.6 million, and we've released $2.4 million to 30 different projects in our region to protect our community and build a forest economy. This includes 7 grants recently awarded for a total of over $500,000 through the Truckee North Tahoe Forest Management Program, which is supported by CAL FIRE for private landowner forest management work. And now what we're getting to tonight. This evening, we're discussing community wildfire protection plans. We're excited to have multiple agency partners with us tonight to give an overview of what community wildfire protection plans are and briefing on each agency's current efforts to update their CWPPs. Before I introduce them, I just want to remind everyone to please keep yourself muted. This presentation is being recorded for later viewing. And following the presentations, we will have a Q&A with our presenters. You can type questions into the chat at any time, and we will record questions and go through them after the presentation. We have 4 speakers joining us this evening. Alessandra Zambrano, the County Wildfire Coordinator for Nevada County Office of Emergency Services. Alex Keeble-Toll, the Senior Administrative Analyst with Nevada County Office of Emergency Services. Cheyanne Neuffer, who's the Fire Adapted Communities Community Wildfire Protection Plan Program Coordinator with the Tahoe Resource Conservation District. And we have Dillon Sheedy, the Assistant Wildfire Prevention Manager and Registered Professional Forester with Truckee Fire Protection District. Without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to our presenters.
Thanks, Nicole. So, what is a community wildfire protection plan? Community wildfire protection plans were established through the Healthy Forest Restoration Act. This was a congressional act that was initiated in 2003, and its goal was to increase hazardous fuels reduction on federal land. However, it also stipulated that communities should be prioritized for protection as well as watershed health, and gave birth to the framework of community wildfire protection plans. Community wildfire protection plans are used by communities to help plan for wildfire risk reduction. Their goal is to identify and prioritize areas for mitigation through collaborative and regional planning. Community wildfire protection plans do not mandate what should or should not be done, and they do not create legal regulations. They're an educational planning tool that is created by the community for the community. There are 3 requirements for community wildfire protection plans under the Healthy Forest Restoration Act. One is that they have to have regional collaboration. We know that wildfire cannot be addressed by one entity alone, and we need to work together to address this problem at a meaningful scale. The second requirement is that they need to identify and prioritize areas for mitigation actions so that communities can move forward with lowering their risk from wildfire threats. And the third is that they have to identify strategies for reducing structural ignitability, recognizing that the threat from wildfire is not only in the wildland areas, but in our built environment as well. One common addition to CWPPs, though it is not a requirement, is that they also identify best management practices for reducing wildfire risk. Because it is strategic if you identify where you need to go, the what of the plan, that you should also call out how you want these actions to be accomplished.
Awesome. Thanks, Alessandra. Good evening, everybody. I have the burning question of why do we create CWPPs? Definitely a question that we receive a lot, and it's not a process that everybody is super familiar with. I do want to emphasize, like Alessandra just said, that the reason that we do CWPPs is for you all. It's for our community. It's informed by our community, and our community is involved in really every step of the process. And so really we create CWPPs really to convene, collaborate, and engage with community members. And I want to emphasize that this is not just a group of individuals sitting in a vacuum, prioritizing projects and putting them on a map and saying it's all good to go here, then let's do it, right? This is a group that is collaborated with, and so that includes agencies like the Forest Service or the California State Parks and other local agencies as well. And we also include in this process what we call other stakeholders. And while yes, community members are certainly a stakeholder, when I mean other stakeholders, I'm talking about other organizations that are maybe non-governmental organizations that have a vested interest in protecting the community. That could include organizations in the Truckee area, such as TTCF, the Truckee-Tahoe Community Foundation, the Truckee Donner Land Trust, the Truckee River Watershed Council. And so what we do when we create these CWPPs is we come together as a group, and we have experts and models and best available data that allows us to better understand wildfire risk, and with the goal of establishing a coordinated plan to mitigate that risk. Really where the community comes in is, after a lot of the heavy analysis happens and modeling and prioritization, we bring our ideas back to the community, and we look for areas where we can align, if you will, the crosshairs between what the experts think we should do and what the community wants us to do. If you live in the Truckee area, you'll see the map here shortly. We're really using this as an opportunity for our community who just voted on Measure T, the local wildfire mitigation tax, which everyone in our fire district is paying into. We want you to come out to our community meetings and tell us what you want and where you want projects done, and where your priorities align with the subject matter experts' priorities is where we weight and prioritize our projects. And so your voice and your opinions matter. And we want to make sure that the community has a say in how Measure T funding specific to Truckee is being spent. And this is consistent for the other organizations in this talk today. Really, and we'll hear from Alex Keeble-Toll later on how this helps identify and receive grants from state and federal resources. And so it's another option for everybody to, those of us that are not in the Truckee Fire Protection District, your voice still does matter, and where you want priorities and projects completed is how you get, your prioritizations on the map. I can go to next slide. So I'm a forester, and I like to think of the world as goals and objectives in my work. And when I say goals, these are kind of big picture things, and objectives are more specific, like attainable things that we can do. And so goals of the CWPP, we heard a little bit from Alessandra. Really, we want to enhance fire and life safety. We want to mitigate wildfire impacts and create wildfire resilient communities. Through the CWPP, as I said, we convene decision makers and land managers, and we engage with the community and stakeholders to hear their voice and understand what their priorities are. We want to, through the CWPP, we want to establish community priorities, and we want to implement those priorities. And we also want to restore and maintain fire resilient communities and landscapes. If we want a little finer detail, the objectives that we're looking for is to provide public and firefighter safety by improving fire preparedness, prevention, and increasing mitigation efforts. We want to identify and quantify risk and hazards at a community scale and understand measures that we have to take to reduce these risks and mitigate hazards. Of course, you've heard me say it multiple times now. Our objective is always to collaborate with agencies, stakeholders, and the public. And really, we want to develop that mitigation roadmap, we like to call it, right? An implementable, prioritized plan for risk reduction that promote wildfire resilience.
Hi, my name is Cheyanne, and I am the CWPP coordinator at the Lake Tahoe Basin CWPP update. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how the public is involved in the CWPP process. The public plays an integral role in the development of CWPPs. And as we faced increasing wildfire risks, the collaboration between communities and agencies, fire districts is truly essential. So including public input fosters a sense of shared responsibility for wildfire preparedness. Communities are more likely to adopt and adhere to measures that they've had a hand in shaping, and so they truly feel more involved. So attending your regional CWPP meetings, webinars, workshops, or completing your local CWPP survey is truly important, because as we're planning these documents, we want to tap into the expertise of the public. Locals understand their communities well, and public insights provide critical context for effective planning. And just to echo what Dillon said, CWPPs are truly meant to reflect community values and priorities. And community priorities, whether critical infrastructure, wildlife, cherished natural areas, we want that information to be included in the CWPP because it's truly a community wildfire protection plan. And knowing that should empower our communities to feel like they really do have a say in all the stuff that goes on. And then the development of CWPPs and getting the public involved also plays a major role in awareness and preparedness. Informed public is better equipped to protect themselves and their properties. And CWPPs disseminate vital information, including emergency preparedness information and information on how to reduce structural ignitability, which is one of those requirements. So a priority for CWPPs also is that long-term engagement piece. CWPPs should never be static. We don't want them just as these documents sitting on the shelf collecting dust. They need to adapt for changing conditions, and ongoing involvement is key to ensuring continued effectiveness. And this is why if you've been hearing about CWPPs, you might have heard how they are becoming more of a web-based platform. So that's where we're seeing ArcGIS, story maps, those sort of platforms getting involved more in the CWPP process. This makes this continued dialogue and the ability for CWPPs to be more easily updated in the future. So every region developing a CWPP might have a different tactic for community involvement. And some examples for like what we're doing in the Tahoe Basin are public meetings, workshops, webinars, press releases, social media, website portals, regional surveys, and community events. So for the Lake Tahoe Basin CWPP update, we have been attending community events around the basin, such as the North Tahoe Wildfire Preparedness Event, Wildfire Expo, Earth Day, and several others. So we'll also be at Firefest it's next month, and we'll be talking to community members and letting them know what's going on and how to get involved into the CWPP process. So overall, public engagement with CWPPs is essential for ensuring that these plans are reflective of local concerns, values, collaborative, useful, and effective at reducing wildfire risk. Thank you.
Okay, so let's talk about community wildfire protection plans and grant funding. CWPPs have a nexus with grant funding because some funders quite literally require that a project be identified as a priority in a CWPP. An example of this is the Community Wildfire Defense Grant Program, which requires that all implementation projects be called out in a CWPP not more than 10 years old. More broadly, having a project listed in a CWPP demonstrates to funders that the project is a priority among community members and partners who are likely to have the capacity to implement. A project identified in a CWPP that was predicated on robust community engagement can show that there's community buy-in for the work. From a funding perspective, this can go a long way towards a successful grant application because it makes it easier to get letters of support, match, and in-kind contributions, all of which are really attractive to funders. More importantly, a well-done CWPP is a collaborative, community consensus building process and tool around what is important to protect from wildfire and how to get the job done. An outcome is that you're able to define projects in a way that makes them fundable. But really, you're able to define projects that are based on partnership and community desires and needs.
Cool. Let's talk about the efforts that we have going on right now that impact hopefully all of us in this call today. Funny enough, all three organizations that are here speaking tonight are all going through CWPP Community Wildfire Protection Plan updates. All of our documents are getting a little old and stale. And it's time now to update it to reflect current conditions and priorities within our communities. And so in the map that's presented in front of you, you see the bold dashed line is basically Nevada County, all of Nevada County. That's being headed up by Nevada County OES. And that encompasses part of Truckee, which is funny, right? And so we're working on, how do we make this fit? We feel like as the Truckee Fire Protection District that our region is unique and warrants a closer community level look. Especially we have ranging conditions from Donner Summit to Central Truckee to East Truckee, different demographics of people, different forest conditions, etc. And so what will happen is our CWPP will get annexed into, hopefully, the Nevada County CWPP, and it will be referenced as such. Simultaneously, the Lake Tahoe Basin is currently updating their Community Wildfire Protection Plan as well. Obviously, what the Tahoe Basin decides to do within their jurisdiction is up to that community specifically. But I would say that we're all using similar tools, similar data, industry standard best practices to achieve complementary CWPPs, because as we know, fire does not care about jurisdictional boundaries. And so what we all do as a group, as a whole, as a region, influences the other. And so we are in close coordination with all three of these, or Nevada County and Lake Tahoe. All three of us are talking. We're using similar data and all that. And so just wanted to be clear that there are three different efforts going on. And it can be a little bit confusing, like when you get a Nevada County CWPP survey, should you be filling it out? Yes, you should be. And if you live in Truckee, you should be as well. And then when you get the specific Truckee one, you should do that survey as well, because that's specific to where you live and your geography. So please be part of the process as we move through this. And I think we have some updates on where we are on each of our planning efforts. And we all encourage you to be involved.
So for the Nevada County CWPP, this covers the entirety of Nevada County, including the areas within Truckee Fire Protection District. We have a community survey that is open until August 31st. If you would like to take the survey, you can take it on readynevadacounty.org. And I will drop that link in the chat in just a minute. The survey is in English and in Spanish. We are also hosting our first round of community workshops this August. They're virtual 1-hour lunch and learns where you have an opportunity to be updated on where we are in the process, learn what we've started to see in terms of trends with the hazard and the survey analysis. If you live in the Truckee Donner forecast zone, so that's within the Truckee Fire Protection District and the unincorporated areas of Nevada County west of Donner Summit to state line, your lunch and learn is on August 23rd, and you can register at readynevadacounty.org/CWPP. And if you're not in that area, you can also look up which forecast zone you fall in and which workshop you would want to register for. We will post the workshop recordings once we've concluded the lunch and learn process and had an opportunity to translate them into Spanish.
So for the Truckee specific CWPP, this is our entire fire district. So that is from Cisco Grove to State Line. And it does include portions of Placer County. I would tell you all, if you live in Placer County, still take the survey and have your voice heard. If you live in Truckee and you happen to be on the Placer County line, again, it's important to be involved in any process that is local to where you live. We will have a Truckee area specific survey coming soon. We're working on some Spanish translation before we release that, but it will be released in the next 2 weeks. And if you are on our communications list, you will get a notification of that, and it will also be available on our website. We will be holding 4 community workshops, likely now in September and October. Locations and times have not been determined yet, but I encourage you, if you're in this meeting and you're from Truckee, you can reach out to me at any time and ask about where we are in the process. We can write your email down so that you're getting notifications, and it will be sent to all the Firewise communities and HOA distribution lists. We do have a website specific to the CWPP, and we encourage you to go there for updates and any info that you would like. Again, the 4 community workshops are being planned currently, and you will be notified soon.
Yeah, so also the Lake Tahoe Basin CWPP is currently being updated and in the process. We do have a Tahoe Basin wide survey, and it's going to be open till August 31st. And this is specifically for people who live in one of our 6 fire districts. So it's kind of just down to those, but we have our first stakeholder meetings. We've done our first round other than our North Tahoe, so Placer County stakeholder meeting, and we're still determining the date on that. I'm guessing it's going to be towards the end of the year. But all the updates and the survey link is here or in the QR code and on our website and it's located at TahoeLivingWithFire.com, and you just go to resources and then the CWPP update, and it has all the information updates located there. Once we have our public stakeholder meetings and we have a draft going, we'll be having a 30-day public comment period for the draft, and then we'll be incorporating those as well. And yeah, but all updates are at TahoeLivingWithFire.com. Thanks.
Thank you so much to all of our presenters, Cheyanne, Dillon, Alex, and Alessandra. It's exciting to hear all of these updates are happening concurrently, and to hear about the collaboration between all of you. We are going to jump into the Q&A session, and I had one question come in through the chat. I feel like it was kind of answered, but Helen, did you want kind of further clarification on that question you put in about if these opportunities apply to all of Nevada County versus the Truckee Fire District, or was that made clear? Okay, I'm going to assume it was made clear, but feel free to jump on if you want to ask for further.
She just direct messaged and said it is not clear. Sorry.
Okay.
But I'll provide clarification
Okay.
while I'm unmuted. So for Nevada County's Community Wildfire Protection Plan, this covers the entire county. It includes all of the unincorporated areas and the incorporated areas. So essentially, if you live in Nevada County, no matter if you live in the town of Truckee, you live in Grass Valley, or you live in an unincorporated region, you are covered by the Community Wildfire Protection Plan that Nevada County is putting forth. Truckee Fire is providing a more localized CWPP that is specific to the Truckee Fire Protection District. And so Helen, just based off your message, you're in the Tahoe Timber Trails community, so you're covered by the Nevada County CWPP.
Thanks, Alessandra. I have a question for you all. You talked a lot about collaboration between the agencies and across the different regions, but I'm wondering if you can speak a little bit more specifically to how project prioritization works when there's overlapping boundaries of the CWPPs. So with Truckee Fire and Nevada County, you're creating separate plans that probably have separate priority project lists, but do those lists have crossover of like the same projects are on both lists within the overlapping areas, or how does that work?
I'll just say broadly, and then Alessandra can follow up. Our approach is to identify priority project areas versus priority projects per se. And that was very intentional because our hope was to not create a binding CWPP where only certain folks working on very specific issues around wildfire mitigation would find utility in the process. We really wanted to create a 5-phase process essentially that opened the door up to anyone working in a rural forested landscape to implement work and have it be recognized as valued in the CWPP and therefore to be recognized as valued by funders. So we have a dashboard that's part of our CWPP process that will allow for looking at different geospatial layers so that if you were a mission-driven organization interested in a specific watershed, you would be able to look at the layers that were specific to achieving your programmatic objectives, and that would still be nested within this broader community wildfire protection plan. Alessandra, what did I miss?
I was just also going to add that because we annex Truckees into ours, anything that they identify as a priority in their CWPP also gets covered by our CWPP. So that's part of the collaboration process. We're going to identify these broad areas where projects are going to be prioritized, but then also because we annex their CWPP into our document, we also say that anything they list is also a priority in our document as well.
Yeah, and thanks for that, Alex and Alessandra. And yeah, I mean, given the size of Nevada County, that totally makes sense, and we fully support that. And what we're trying to do in Truckee is we're trying to get a little bit more granular, identify actual projects that are attainable and implementable, and are a priority for the community. And so our CWPP will be a little bit more specific based on our geography.
Thank you guys for that clarification. I'm going to go to Anne Rarick with your hand up. Go for it, Anne.
Hi, yeah, thanks for the presentations. Just kind of wondering about the timeline for the CWPPs since I know the grant that was mentioned, that's due at the end of October. So we're hoping to be able to provide some feedback with Connecting Point and the COAD to get included to potentially be looking into that grant. So I don't know if you can provide any insight on that.
So Nevada County CWPP is dated 2016, which means by the Community Wildfire Defense Grant standards, it's not technically out of date yet. We will not be done with our CWPP for approximately 18 months. We're thinking we will have the new CWPP in 2025, early in 2025. So as far as the new process being able to influence this next funding cycle, what I will say is our Community Wildfire Protection Plan update is funded by last year's CWDG grant. And I think that strategically for folks in Nevada County seeking that funding, you could speak to the fact that number one, our CWPP is not yet outdated. And number two, CWDG itself is funding our robust update over the next 18 months.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, and for Truckee Fire, we're trying to finalize our document by next spring and have it on our webpage live and ready to go. It is ambitious, but we're hoping by spring of 2024 that the Truckee specific CWPP will be completed.
And also the Lake Tahoe Basin CWPP should be completed in spring of 2024 too. And we were funded by the California Tahoe Conservancy to do this project.
Thank you, guys. There was a question in the chat from Kathy Taylor. I'm going to kind of give an overview of it. She gave some examples of programs that exist in Carson City for free green waste dumpster drop off at people's homes, as well as free, looks like free green waste bins for yard waste that they have for their residents, and was asking if this is, you know, a way that we can provide those services in this region. So I think, Kathy, you said you're located in Homewood, so that would be within North Tahoe Fire Protection District. And I know that they do have a curbside chipping program where you can request, you can put green waste out on the curb and request that they come by and chip your green waste. I don't know if any of our representatives want to speak to the programs in their jurisdictions, or Cheyanne, if you want to add in on the basin.
Yeah, so for there is the chipping program where it's through the fire adopted communities, and North Tahoe has been funded through the SNPLMA grant, Southern Nevada Lands Management. Yeah, long one, but they have been funded to offer those services. So just get in touch with your fire district. And then also I know on the South Shore that our South Tahoe Refuse, which it would be kind of a far drive, but they do the green waste, free green waste dumping too. So a couple of options there for you. And I'm not sure about on the exact specifically in Homewood, but.
Thank you.
Yeah, Kathy, I would just say that this emphasizes the importance of having a local funding source like Measure T, specific to Truckee. These efforts are expensive. They take a lot of administration, and a lot of the times you can only get it through grants, which grants can be a cumbersome process. They can take a long time to write. You're not always guaranteed to get the money. And so the residents of Truckee and our fire protection district actually just decided to pass a special tax, $180 a year for the next 8 years. And we're able to provide all these services for our community that you're outlining here. We pick up green waste for free. We hand out rebates for green waste bins. We do defensible space inspections, all of these things, and it's all made possible by having a locally controlled funding source to do so. And I think that emphasizes the importance of communities understanding that we need to come together as a community and find solutions to offer more of these services across the region.
Nevada County, we don't have a localized funding source that's specific to green waste, but we have been able to offer green waste services many years now through strategic pulling down of CAL FIRE grant funding in partnership with Fire Safe Council of Nevada County. We would anticipate that at the individual scale in our community wildfire protection plan, support for addressing hazardous vegetation on private property will be a priority that's identified, which will make it more strategic and easy for us to secure grant funding to offer those services. And finally, I will just add that CAL FIRE, Nevada Yuba Placer Unit, has been incredibly supportive of our efforts to address green waste, in particular in the outcome of winter storms like the last 2 years. They have offered us $950,000 essentially winter storm recovery grants the last 2 years. The one that was offered for recovery of the 2023 winter storm allowed us to deploy 54 green waste bins on a rotating basis to 25 locations across Nevada County. in neighborhoods that were the most impacted. And those locations collected nearly 90 tons of green waste from those communities. And 3 of those locations were in East County, in Russell Valley, Plavada, and Kingvale.
Thank you all for that additional information. Kathy, did you have any follow-up question or comment that you wanted to ask further? All right, I'm gonna move into another question. How often are CWPPs updated? And is there a defined like expiration date or time period that you all define as you're writing it for how long it kind of like a shelf life or utilization timeline for them?
Oh, sorry. Also,
Oh, sorry. Nicole, sorry, there was just another question that was direct message to me before we jumped into that one. It'll be a little bit of an easier answer if
Yeah,
you
go
don't.
for it.
So Dillon, this is for you. Is there an oversight committee for the funding for Measure T that assesses how you're doing and what you could improve? You are in the 2nd year, and is there a link to that committee to get more information on the success of the program?
Yes, there is a Citizens Oversight Committee, and we are actually meeting on the 24th in a week to provide an update to that committee. We've met previously last winter after our 1st year, and everything is going smoothly. We do have updates on our website at truckeefire.org. And if you go to the Wildfire Prevention tab, we should be able to find, Measure T Citizens Oversight Committee. And so it is all publicly facing, publicly available. We do have an agenda on the website for the 24th. And if you want to come by and hear the updates, you're more than welcome.
Thanks, Dillon. Any other questions that have come in direct message? Okay, cool. So let's go back to talking about if you guys want to touch on timelines or shelf life of these plans and whether they have expiration dates.
I can jump in really quick, and CWPPs are recommended to be updated every 5 years. But with this whole push towards making these CWPPs available on like a web platform, that might change to make them just kind of always, keep them somewhat updated more regularly. But yeah, I guess that from the HFRA, they do recommend every 5 years.
I know that that's just a recommendation. So because I have seen, I've seen some plans to go, 10 years or more. I think that's a more historical practice. It seems like there's a lot more focus on these plans and updating them more frequently in the last couple of years. So probably going to see more frequent updates.
Yeah, so historically they never expired, but they were always kind of recommended to be updated on this 5-year basis, because that's sometimes about the interval in which if you've implemented a project, you're back to implementation again. And then recently with CWDG, the Community Wildfire Defense Grant, they put a hard expiration on 10 years. And it only applies to that particular funder though. So it's kind of a weird gray area. So technically, if another funder doesn't have that expiration listed, it doesn't necessarily apply. But at the same time, at the 5-year mark, you really do want to be looking at your plan again, irrespective of if it's technically expired.
Thank you, guys. Do we have any other questions from participants? I haven't seen any hands raised. Otherwise, I'll go to another one that I have. Give everyone a minute. Anne, go ahead.
Yeah, so I guess in the CWPPs, it's like a specific project. It's not necessarily, you'll list out those specific projects tied to agencies, not necessarily like a overarching strategy or priority. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
Like I'm
so
looking at, sorry, go ahead.
CWPPs themselves are not projects, they're strategic plans. So they identify projects, but they themselves are not a project.
Got it. But you'll identify the specific project with an agency tied to it in the plan. As
Not
opposed to, like-
necessarily.
Okay.
So it's depending on how you're updating the plan and what your objective is. For Nevada County, we don't plan on going that route. Our plan is to identify project priority areas and to not call out specific agencies or projects as much as possible, because we want more people to be able to work within our plan. But we also operate on a really large landscape in comparison to other types of CWPPs, where it would make sense to call out a specific project and then the agency that put it forward.
Okay, cool. Thank you. That's helpful.
Dillon, is the Truckee CWPP? I feel like you guys maybe get a little bit more specific than what Alessandra just described. Can you?
We do, but it's not just one project, and it's multiple. It's a mitigation roadmap, right? So it can be, it's whatever feels attainable, right? And so if we estimate that we can treat, and again, I'm talking specific to Truckee Fire Protection District here. If we think we can treat 1,000 acres a year, we're going to try to prioritize 5,000 to 8,000 acres of treatments. And it's not necessarily, yes, it's not specifically called out as like this agency is going to implement this project at this time. It's not really it's not as structured as that. It's here's the roadmap, here are the priorities, and then there's various priorities and there's various projects. And then it's on us as land managers and grant writers and foresters and all that to pick those projects and implement them strategically to make the biggest impact as soon as possible.
Thank you, guys. I guess I just wanted to note kind of on the project prioritization piece of CWPPs from TTCF's perspective, with our Forest Futures funding, we are giving out funding, as I overviewed at the beginning, to support projects that are happening on the ground. And we are trying to look at CWPPs as well as other planning efforts when we're deciding what projects to support in the region. And I know we're not the only ones that are doing that. When you're looking at, where you should fund projects, we're trying to be kind of mindful of these really intentional planning efforts that our partners are doing and incorporating, the information from these plans into how we're deciding what to fund when we're giving out funding as well. And so in addition to the specific grant opportunities that were noted earlier in the presentation, I think just, Forest Futures is trying to also keep in mind these planning efforts, and I know other funders are doing the same. Do we have any last questions? I'm not seeing any. Oh, here comes one. Helen asked for a recap. As a community that wants to get more involved, what's the best way to start? Attend a workshop, or if you can't make a workshop, what would be an alternative way to get involved if you can't attend a workshop?
Take the survey.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. The best way is take the survey, make your voice heard, identify your priorities. A lot of these workshops are held virtually too now, just in that in mind that it's not always feasible for people to travel long distances. And so I would say, Helen, that if you want regular updates, to reach out to Nevada County, since you are in Timber Trails, and just try to understand, when they're going to have meetings and what materials are available to you. But the most important thing you can do is take the survey. We spend a lot of time thinking about those surveys and making them meaningful for us and for you. And so that's probably the best way to do it.
Yeah, and I'll just add, County of Nevada's survey was designed to capture information that's important beyond just what will feed into our community wildfire protection plan update. I mean, we definitely have very specific questions that will allow Alessandra to do the appropriate modeling, but we really took the opportunity to get feedback on a multitude of issues that are important to wildfire mitigation, including what are your evacuation experiences in Nevada County? What's important to you? What are you concerned about? And we envision using those data to help inform how we strategize around outreach and providing resources to the community that are needed and to fill gaps in understanding. And so even if you're not specifically interested in the community wildfire protection plan per se, take the survey because it gives you a voice in terms of how we approach preparedness, response, mitigation, and recovery across the county.
Yeah, and just the same with the Tahoe Basin survey as well. We really put a lot of thought into that survey, and that we have a lot of open-ended questions too, where you can submit different areas. So, you know, and all that information gets directly funneled to all sorts of stuff and also to the fire district. So it's really important for those surveys.
All right, thank you all so much. If anyone has any last minute questions, feel free to put them in the chat as we wrap up. But I'm going to share my screen one last time, and just want to thank all of our presenters, Cheyanne, Dillon, Alessandra, and Alex, for presenting today and sharing this really important information with the community. And thank you to all of our participants also for engaging in this really important topic. Wanted to note that this Forest Futures Salons are an ongoing series that the Community Foundation puts on. And our next one is going to be on September 12th, same time, 4 to 5:15 p.m. And it's going to be on the topic of woody biomass utilization opportunities and current projects under development. So we're going to be giving an overview of biomass utilization. What is that? Why do we need these facilities? Kind of the history that brought us to where we are today. We'll have a couple of different agency partners presenting on that panel and giving also updates on biomass facilities that are currently proposed in the mostly the North Tahoe and Truckee region. We might have some presenters from the South Lake area as well, because there are a number of projects currently under development in our region. And it kind of builds off of some of the questions that we're being asked about green waste, because green waste processing is a challenge right now. We do not have enough outlets for it. So we hope you will join us for that. And all of these recordings from these events are always available on our YouTube channel, as well as our website. And if you have any follow-up questions or you can't find a recording, feel free to reach out to me. With that, thank you all again for joining us. We will be sending out a follow-up email with a link to this recording next week once we have it uploaded. And I will also send out links to the CWPP surveys for the basin and for Nevada County, and we can share Truckee's when it's ready, right, Dillon? It's not quite ready yet, I think you said. Okay. And if you have any further questions or input, or you can't find someone's contact information you want to get a hold of, feel free to reach out to me. And we thank you all very much for joining us tonight. And oh, sorry, one last thing I wanted to mention. And I'll go to you, Alex. There is an evacuation preparedness town hall happening tonight in Kings Beach, put on by Placer County. It starts at 6 p.m. at the North Tahoe Event Center. So if any of you are interested in that discussion, you might have time to make it over there by 6 p.m. at the North Tahoe Event Center in Kings Beach to talk about evacuation. Alex, were you going to mention that?
I was just waving goodbye.
You were like putting your hand up. All right. Thank you, everyone. So much.
Thank you all.
All right. Have a good evening. Thank you, Sandra.